Yeah, this next one's coming from CNET. Um, or no, dude, I have my order backwards. You messed me up.
I'm sorry.
You messed me up. We
I don't
gotta.
know when I switched it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you'd
Uh,
kill me, dude.
Maybe it's
But it's fine. This
yeah.
one I'm also excited to talk about.
No.
XDefiant. So we're talking about XDefiant. It's made by Ubisoft. Who I feel like we've covered Ubisoft a lot this year. I mean, they've been struggling. They're all over the place. We don't know what they're doing.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know,
Okay.
Mike.
Yeah, the writing. I'm not saying the writing's on the wall, but there's so many red flags that's got me nervous. I'll be honest. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit when we get into this episode or this segment. So Ubisoft delays XDefiant after failing console certification. Not a good sign. This is by Justin
Ooh.
Carter, contributing editor from Game Developer. I don't even know how you fail console certification, but let's get into it. Ubisoft confirms its upcoming multiplayer shooter XDefiant has been pushed back after it failed to pass console certification from PlayStation and Xbox. So, for those of you that don't know, XDefiant is, if I remember correctly, Kyle, it's a team of ex-COD developers that basically made a COD knockoff in a way.
It sure is.
Yeah. So, let's go. In a recent blog post, producer Mark Rubin explained that the studio applied for certification in July and found out in August it didn't meet those requirements. As a result, the studio is now looking for compliance and functionality bugs so it can reapply within the next 2 weeks and release in mid or late September. Third party developers like Ubisoft and EA have to get certification from first party studios in order for their games to release on storefronts like the PlayStation or Xbox stores. For big studios, the process is important to ensure their games get as much attention as possible, and it's rare that certification either doesn't happen or gets revoked. Sheesh.
Ooh. Hmm. You know, it's
Uh,
I mean, I've. That's the thing. If your game gets denied, I mean, it's not just a couple of bugs, right? It's got to be like,
yeah.
it's got to be kind of riddled, just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I, I don't even
oh
know, man. Like, I wonder if they're gonna go into it in this article, but my initial thoughts are like maybe they built the PC version first and tried to port it to PlayStation, Xbox, and just broke everything. Because
yeah.
sometimes
I
that will
mean,
happen,
who
going the
knows? Yeah.
opposite way. Um, yeah. Or maybe they're struggling with like the old generation, like PS4 and Xbox Series S.
I
You
mean,
know how we talk
yeah, if
about
they're,
that from time to
I mean,
time?
yeah, if they're
Yeah.
trying to go on the, yeah,
If,
got
it just
you,
really
yeah, you
depends.
got ditch those old platforms. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
2023, Mike. You know, we're about to get
It's a
pro
fact.
versions of the PlayStation, probably. You know what I mean? Like,
Honestly, yeah, and there's a rumor there's a Switch too. Might be announced at Nintendo Direct this month. We'll find out. We'll find
oh
out.
shoot.
But little little sidetrack. Let's get back to the story though. So here we are. Ruben acknowledged that it's possible Sony and Microsoft will approve XDefiant with a conditional pass, meaning a day one patch would have to be implemented. Should that be the case, the shooter will be delayed to mid or late October. Holy smokes.
Oh,
Okay. So from the blog post, these are quotes from Mark Rubin. If we were following the standard rules for game releases, we would have set a date far enough in advance with enough buffer to have a confident release date. However, like a lot of things with this game, we have not chosen the typical route. When it comes to when we will release XDefiant, the real answer is as soon as we can, and we will continue to update you with more info when we have it. Bro, I've been around long enough. You know what I'm about to say. You already know. I've seen this kind of crap so many times, man, that I'm just this game is going to be a total bust
it's just
immediately.
like,
Immediately,
oh,
man.
dude.
Total bust.
You know what my faith is, Mike? For the audio people, I'm holding up a zero right now. A little circle.
I've Jeez.
I
We're
just,
probably more I love it how the next paragraph references this game. You see what I'm like scroll down a little bit. It references that game at the end of
yeah.
that first paragraph. I have more hope in Skull and Bones now than I do X Defiant, bro.
Oh my
Like you're
god.
telling me you can't launch on Xbox and PlayStation because you can't get console certification, bro.
Bro,
Like,
I think the biggest thing that worries me out of all this is just like Yeah, our method for development, it's not like a standard practice and like a proper
Yeah.
path. We're just like bros in an office, just goofing
Yeah,
off
I
half the
mean,
time, and we'll fix this bug then. We'll get to that later. Uh,
we have not chosen the typical route.
it's like,
Does that
like
just
what
mean
is
you don't
like what is
finish it? Like,
like what
what's the
is
typical route,
like what
bro?
does that
Like,
mean? Like, I'm not sure. Oh
uh,
man, it's
and
it's
everybody keeps
insane.
asking us, by the way, when we're going to release. The real answer is as soon as we can, which hopefully is this year. Like, dude, come on,
It's just like it's like
come on,
it was. I'm pretty sure it was like spring, and then it was like summer,
dude.
and
They keep,
summer
yeah,
releases nowadays. Like whenever you say summer and it's a couple months out, it's not coming out in the
yeah.
summer. I'm sorry. Like it might as well just chalk it.
You
Um,
know what scares me? You know what absolutely terrifies me? So this game didn't get console certification. Halo Infinite did, Battlefield 2042 did, Cyberpunk 2077 did. Like, dude, how bad is this game gonna be on console if those games that launched were trash
yeah.
ended up launching, you know?
Well, see, and now it's like the developers, I feel like are kind of screwed to a certain extent because, like, if you do get a conditional pass, right? I mean, you're slaving away until day one to try and get as much as you can fixed. Those are going to
That's the
be
fact.
long hours, right? If you're trying to hit a deadline. But it
That's
seems
true.
like
What if
the thing is they never had a
yeah,
deadline though. You know, what I mean? Like there was never a set date. It was kind of just like, all right, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, kind of thing. Which is like
that's
just
such a
not
bad
very.
idea.
It's not very promising, especially for like an arena shooter, right? It's like
No,
I don't know.
heck no, man. You need with arena shooters, man, you need to like when you release the game, it has to be perfect, like functionality, and it has to be fun. And then you have to get the cloud of like streamers and content creators on it. Because
Yeah,
if
I
you
mean,
don't, like the entire game is playing against others. You need a large population. You can't just depend on a story mode.
yeah,
Although there are arena shooters that do that. Like I
right,
buy Call of Duty specifically for the story mode.
yeah,
That's what I do, but I'm a rarity,
yeah.
out of
And I
like a
mean,
arena arena shooters minority.
and, like this is the other thing too to consider. It's like when you have an arena shooter, I would argue that it's probably the most controlled environment for developing in a game, right? Because you know
Yeah,
all the like variables, right? Like like there's a confined
ideally.
space, right? Like
I
like ideally okay, this is the world we have. These are the kind of the walls we have to build around, kind of thing.
mhm.
It's a small kind of space. It's not open world. There's a lot of like stuff we don't necessarily have to worry about in that regard. Like I mean, it should be a fairly controlled space. I mean, if you're adding a bunch of, I mean, I know this game has like like the weird. I think it's got like specialist stuff and whatever, where it's like weird abilities and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like roles to fill, similar to how what's that game? Rainbow Six Siege in a way.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like that. I mean, yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's but at the end of the day, it's an arena shooter. I mean, there's a reason that there's a new COD that comes out every year, right? Because you have that
Yeah,
formula, and then you have, I mean, especially if you're, I think too, if you're releasing like similar maps, you're reusing assets constantly, right? You're recycling. So it's like
ideally.
the only way, I mean, the only way you could do that every single year consistently is, I mean, okay, there's a lot we can reuse, there's a lot we can do because coming out with a game every year, I mean, we know we've covered this before too. It's increasingly harder to release a game every year, right? Like, there's just so much
It
to
is.
video games now. And like, if you want to, I mean, I don't know, this isn't necessarily applied to like arena shooters, but like just any game in general now, it's like a blockbuster title takes years to make. So I mean, it's 3+ years for a lot of these games to eventually come out,
Yep.
which I'm not against. I mean, I love good video games. It's one of those things like I want these games to take time, but I think it's also like, we're at a point now where it's kind of like, it does take a while for these games to come out. And so now there's like a lot of these lulls, and I hear from people all the time, kind of
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't feel like gaming is what it used to be because, it takes forever to get new releases and get good games. So
And then they come out kind of broken,
yeah, and then half the
but
time they don't deliver, and that's another story.
yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I mean, this is like a huge tangent, but I mean, I don't know. Do we want to continue with this article, Mike? Do you want to talk about the importance of this launch of
Uh,
the game developer?
I mean, it's I'm basically like skimming through it right now, and a couple of things that they mention that we can just kind of hit on is all the essentially what the remainder of the article is talking about how there's going to be a lot of competition coming out. So you got Star Wars Outlaws is going to be there. I really like the fact that It's called maybe Skull and Bones will
Yeah,
be coming out this year.
and
But then you
maybe.
have Assassin's Creed Mirage coming out. You're gonna have a couple of free to play massive games coming out from different studios. You've got the big titles probably of the year is Alan Wake 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And xDefiant is supposed to be a game that's going to be on all platforms. It's supposed to be this big arena shooter. But if you're coming out during all those heavy hitters, man, like every single one of those games I just listed, I'm interested in seeing what they're like. You know, I
Yeah.
know you really want to play Alan Wake 2. I know you're
Oh
not
yeah.
really big into the arena shooter kind of stuff, but I think you would probably want to check it out at least.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
But do you
Right.
have time when you got Super Mario Bros. Wonder coming out or Spider-Man 2? I don't have a PlayStation, but damn, if they keep coming out with these types of IPs, bro, I just might need to pony up. I know you saw my tweet earlier. Just another day gone where I can't buy a Sony TV with the PlayStation in it. It's like it kills me all the time, man.
uh,
But
it's
I
yeah.
think yeah, there's a lot of drama coming around XDefiant and this this game developer article by Justin Carter essentially nuked all my expectations and optimism for the game. I
Yeah.
already thought it was a COD ripoff when I saw people hyping it up and playing it on stream and all like the biggest content creators you could possibly think of were playing it
Yeah.
for what, like a month during the
I
closed
mean,
beta?
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Mike. It was
GG's, bro.
when I played it, it was forgettable. Like, I just like there's if like you tell me like I'm trying to talk about it now and I barely remember half the gameplay. It's just like, oh, it kind of
Yeah.
blended with COD. Like it's just like I don't know, the old arena shooter, it's hard for me to enjoy an arena shooter nowadays, unfortunately. Unless it's like mouse and
Yeah.
key. Like then I can probably enjoy it. But I mean
I mean, dude,
the last serious one was probably was not Hyperscape. What's that game called?
the arena shooter? You talking about Splitgate?
Splitgate, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that
That
was
was a
the
polished game. That just didn't have an audience.
yeah, I mean that was the last like arena shooter I thoroughly enjoyed. I put some hours
Yeah.
into, so um curious to see what they
They're
come
coming
out
out
with
with the
next.
second one.
Yeah, no,
Coming out with the
I'm
second one.
curious to see it. Hmm.
It's gonna be good. I have a
I
lot of
mean,
confidence in that development team and the
yeah.
preview work.
And now that I think about it, it's been a year since they announced that, right? That they were moving
Yeah.
on. So
You can
dang,
still play it, but they don't support it actively.
right.
And again, arena shooters you need a population to play. That's just a fact.
Yep. It's very
So,
true, you know. But yeah, it's I mean, yeah, but like yeah, and that last point about, it's like it's a busy packed season for games. And so
mhm.
it's hard to find time for even like average games this year, it feels like. Um
Yeah, yeah, and I'm me personally, I'm sure most people are probably about the same, whether it's monetary issues or just like time consumption. I don't have enough time to finish all the games I have on my list.
yeah,
Like I'm busy, man.
yeah,
So
it's true. Yeah, I
it's
mean
tough.
like yeah, it's crazy. And like a game like I mean like Immortals of Avium I heard was like it was an okay game. But it's one of those things that's like it comes back to the thing of is like, well, I mean with all these releases coming up, it's like do I really have time for it? Probably not. So
No.
maybe next year if if there's nothing if it's a slow year, but yeah, man, a lot of stuff coming out. Especially if you got a PlayStation, you got Spider-Man 2. That thing's gonna be killer. Understand?
Dude. I saw a couple of hype videos on it, but let's just move on to the next